Thank you for watching The Good One.
Well, the attacks happening over there in Thailand and Cambodia are really impressive, and the conflict is growing. Here we see a base being attacked not with just one, but with several missiles. This obviously draws attention. Impressive, honestly. Well, I know they haven't officially declared this a war, but this is a war. This is a war. Obviously, it won't be long before it's officially declared as such. The agreement with Trump wasn't really taken into account. And while obviously the conflict is escalating to the maximum, let's go into the details of what is known about this. This situation, the escalation already has, just in these last few days, 500,000 people, 500,000 people. Imagine 5 Azteca stadiums evacuated. This is just at the border. But attack systems are also already being moved, which will strike deep into these countries. In other words, the intention is no longer just to attack the border, but at least Cambodia has already detected, Thailand detected Cambodia's movement, that they are moving certain cannons that will attack. Let's call them attack systems. We'll soon discuss which ones target different objectives. The alert has already been issued. And obviously, this, in addition to the use of high-level aircraft, is clearly an important part. There's a message that's being given in response to this movement they're making, and it says the following. The Royal Thai Armed Forces Headquarters report detecting an advanced deployment of long-range multiple launch rocket systems. MLRSPHL-03300 in them by the Cambodian Army in Kampong Cham province. This would have a range of approximately 150 kilometers and could potentially be used to strike deep into Thailand. So, well, things are escalating in this region of the world. And obviously, we've been following up on this since months ago when those attacks were happening in this region of the world. And well, now, Cambodia and Thailand's southern border with Cambodia, specifically the northern area and southern Thailand. Well, it's going back to where the clashes are happening and where a war could break out that would destabilize this whole region. Watch out for that issue. More than 500,000 people have reportedly been evacuated due to the attacks happening on the borders between Cambodia and Thailand. The clashes have intensified and the number of attacks has also increased. Just this past Sunday, when this situation erupted, there were at least 11 deaths, including both civilians and soldiers, though the exact number is unknown. The number as of today for these following days. In Thailand, 400,000 people have been relocated to shelters across 7 provinces. Cambodia evacuated 100,000 people, bringing the total to 500,000. On the Cambodian side, there are 5 affected areas on the Thai side. It's a large area along their border, and people were distributed across 7 regions. Both countries are blaming each other, like in a typical war where each side says, it's your fault. And while in the meantime, hostilities have started and escalated. There are unresolved historical claims, for example, about ancient temples in a border area. The temple ended up on the wrong side, so to speak, of the wrong religion. So it's like, my people practice that religion and you have that temple, give me the temple should be on this side. And the other person says, no, it's my territory. Besides, they get a lot of money from the tourism that comes from the other side. So he says, I'm not going to give you anything. It escalates in various ways and the level keeps rising. The civilians were evacuated en masse. They have been evacuated due to various threats to their safety, but things are intensifying with attacks, even with airstrikes and jets that are invading. There are already soldiers invading from both sides. So be careful with that issue because it's already in a very different situation, you know? Because the clash had already happened, but at the level we're seeing now, well, this already looks more like a level of war, especially since troops are already mobilized towards the borders. Yes, The few troops that were there had been withdrawn, but now a massive number of troops, armored vehicles, and various attack systems are arriving in this region. Remember, now when these countries get involved, they go all out. I mean, they're very intense when it comes to entering into conflict. And be careful if this gets out of control because it can have a domino effect on other problems in the area. We must remember that Thailand, Cambodia, Vietnam, and other nearby countries. Malaysia, for example, is also a country that has been involved. Well, I mean, they still have a lot of problems, but they have been growing and prospering in many ways. In terms of product manufacturing, basically following the Chinese model of producing and making cheap products, but increasingly focusing on technological topics. Vietnam, well, is a country that has done well in that sense, and its economy has grown a lot in that area. But Thailand and Cambodia, though not at that level, are still trying, right? So they're very populated countries that still have many needs, but also with important progress. But unfortunately, they still have these problems. They have high-level weapons, they have fighter jets, they even have enough strength to be in a war for quite a while. Now, that's why we should pay attention to the conflict with Thailand, right? The conflict is already causing possibly the largest movement of people in Asia. As for the fact that there are refugees in massive numbers, now 500,000 plus those who have joined them in previous months. The Minister of Information of Cambodia, Neta Pestara, reported that evacuations are already taking place. 101,129 people are heading to Cambodia. In total, 1,129 people have been evacuated from both sides. On both sides of the dividing line, what does the shelter look like in these places? Does it look like this? Look, yes, well, people with their suitcases, with the things they can take, they bring their cell phones, they bring their tablets, they bring whatever they can. There are the ladies sitting with their little boxes and suitcases as if heading on a plane trip. Only this time it's not a plane, it's just... Well, they have to leave the area because of the risk of being caught under bombardment from one side or the other. Thousands of families haven't been going into shelters, and in the meantime, the two countries have no chance to talk. What does the United States say? Well, basically they're saying to calm things down, to take it easy, to take things step by step. But in the end, it's just something a country says. Whether it's the United States or any other country, in the end, the problems there weren't solved. Trump made them sign, but without a real solution. It's not a real agreement, and because of this, the problem blows up. Let's move on to other important matters. Notice that this message from María Corina was shared by the Nobel Committee, not the Nobel Prize Committee, since she wasn't able to make it to the award ceremony. Yes, her son receives it. We'll see that moment soon. But it is already known that she would have left, that she managed to leave Venezuela by sea. Now, we more or less know how it happened, and obviously it was quite an odyssey to get out of that place. That too, well, has also been confirmed. And let's listen to how this message from María Corina is delivered to the person in charge of the Nobel Prizes. Let's listen.
Is it María Corina?
Yes, it's María Corina. Oh, how wonderful it is to hear your voice.
How are you, Jorgen? You say, Corina, yes, that's good. It's very exciting. It's so good to hear your voice. And well, they start talking. At the moment when she tells him, well, she's also telling him that she won't be able to make it. She gives him the message, yes, she gives him the message of gratitude out loud right away. And if you want, we can record it right now because the plane has to leave soon, so they record it, right? In which obviously she announces that the prize belongs to all Venezuelans and announces that soon there will be more. Will she reunite with her family after 2 years apart? Obviously, the daughter was very excited, right? María Corina's daughter, who at that moment said the following. Let's listen.
I'm here on behalf of my mother, Maria Corina Machado, who has united millions of Venezuelans.
On behalf of my mother, María Corina Machado, her daughter said. And well, she says that she hasn't been able to be here and take part in María Corina's ceremony precisely because it's difficult, it's complicated to leave Venezuela. She would have left through Curacao, she would have left by sea, she would have gone. Let's get into the details, right? About how this escape happened, which was obviously like something out of a movie, right? And it shows, well, how. It's not that simple, let's say. It's not that easy to leave safely right now, according to reports. Well, soon María Corina will be arriving in Oslo. If she gets to Oslo, there will be a message given there. But obviously, for now, she hasn't been able to leave. This is an important part of, well, everything that is happening right now in Venezuela, leaving a little bit of hope that things will change soon in that country. Meanwhile, there are some interesting details. First of all, the Venezuelan opposition leader and key figure of the democratic movement is said to have escaped by boat to Curacao, according to the Washington Post. The operation was kept secret to protect her safety. The leader, disqualified and persecuted by Nicolas Maduro's regime, was in hiding. She visited several embassies, including the United States Embassy, which has had no diplomats since 2019. But there were, well, people who could be there, so they opened up the space to the United States Embassy and to other embassies from different countries. The route to Curacao has been used by other opposition members, often with support from members of the regime itself. The journey from Caracas to the coast of Falcon is filled with military checkpoints and is completed in speedboats. During the hours of escape, 2 American Super Hornet fighter jets were flying over the Gulf between Falcon and Maracaibo. The Hornets were flying by kind of to, protect the boat where María Corina was traveling. The allies of the opposition leader worked to keep the trip from becoming public in order to protect her safety. Another thing that also caught people's attention was the moment when the daughter Curacao gave this speech, and, well, obviously, she was applauded over there in Norway, in Oslo. She is Ana Corina Sosa, María Corina's daughter. She obviously received applause for the message she gave, and of course also for María Corina herself. Applause for everything she has been doing in Venezuela. In her speech, she conveyed her mother's message, who dedicated the Nobel Prize to Venezuela, to the imprisoned heroes, the persecuted, and world leaders who supported the cause. Obviously, everyone who is helping María Corina so she can leave or so she can enter is risking their life. The situation is obviously complicated. During the Nobel Prize ceremony, the president of the committee, George and Matthew Frieds, accused Cuba, accused Russia, accused Iran and China, even Hezbollah, of strengthening Nicolas Maduro's regime with weapons, surveillance, and economic resources. Frieds himself presented the award to the opposition leader, María Corina Machado, represented by her daughter in Oslo, and he described Venezuela as a brutal and authoritarian state with systematic torture and more than 200 minors detained after the 2024 elections. Well, there you have a series of situations that we obviously need to keep an eye on. Important things are coming up in Venezuela in the near future, so it seems that there could be a situation where a change in the regime might happen. We'll see if that's possible, but it clearly looks like this is the moment. The most striking one. At least we'll see if there's any movement from the United States in that direction, or from the population itself, which could also happen. No, that's also something we shouldn't rule out, definitely not. And among other things, among other topics within Venezuela, we've also been observing these deployments that the United States is making, the movements the United States is making with its ships in which they remain. Basically just waiting for an order, but without anything very clear, right? An image that also shifts the subject, right? What is also surprising today is this Kim Jong-un, in which, well, this North Korean leader unexpectedly bursts into the exam room to the number. Notice how they don't get nervous. There are government officials taking the exam to become government officials. Basically, no. Now that's one, huh? Well, yes, a room full of bureaucrats learning to be bureaucrats. And well, you can see how they're all there, not really checking the exams, apparently all just at the command of whatever Kim Jong-un requires, laughing if he laughs, being serious if he's serious. You know what I mean, right? That's how it goes, right? Meanwhile, well, these are some curious images that come from that authoritarian and super isolated regime. By the way, that's why it's not surprising, because it's rare for images like these to be shared about the kinds of moves the regime makes. Let's move on to other matters also important. Notice that Donald Trump is issuing a very harsh warning to Mexico. There's the warning in which he basically says that Mexico is a threat to Texas and to California. And he showed these images where? In the Rio Grande, right? This river that we have as a division between Mexico and the United States would be highly polluted. He claims and blames it on the Mexican sewage system in those areas being very bad. Donald Trump publicly accuses Mexico of being a real threat to the states of Texas and California, pointing to a sewage crisis and an alleged violation of a water treaty. Through Truth Social, the former president demanded that Mexico immediately resolve its water and sewage problems, accompanied by a message with a video showing untreated water being discharged into the Tijuana River. According to the Environmental Protection Agency, every day 25 million gallons of sewage flow from Mexico into the Pacific. This has forced beach closures and generated health warnings. In San Diego, Donald Trump threatened a 5% tariff on Mexican imports if the required water volume isn't delivered. But he also brought up this issue, right? It really is embarrassing, honestly. How can these rivers be polluted like this? That's it? Regardless of whether it's the Rio Bravo or any other river, this kind of pollution shouldn't be allowed. And it's not the only river that's like this, and something has to be done. I bet they're really gonna do something about it now, huh? People in Mexico who complain about this are ignored. But then President Trump complains, and I bet they'll finally get to work, or maybe still won't get things done. But well, let's hope that now that Trump is bringing it up on a global level, right? And I repeat again, it's a shame these kinds of pollutants, right? And talking about it better with Jerez himself, who's over there, well, yes, it's true. I mean, it really is true. This situation, I mean, it's not that he's lying. It's not like he's taking the images out of context, right? I mean, the problem with these pollutants coming from over there has been known for a long time. And well, no matter the country or the situation, pollution like this is always unfortunate. Hopefully they'll solve it soon. In the meantime, let's move on to other matters which are also important. There are still images coming out of war tanks being moved, this time between Thailand and Cambodia. It's quite an escalation, isn't it? There are already 16 F-16s that have been showing up around there, and dozens of tanks are moving in, but they don't say how many. 50 and 55, which are also advancing toward the front, they're moving them toward the front, toward the border. Well, these are some of the images that are starting to circulate. The Royal Armed Forces of Thailand have detected deployments of long-range rocket systems by Cambodia. Something we were just talking about also within Asia, but in Indonesia, there are even more images showing how the streets and bridges ended up after those extreme rains they had. No, between Malaysia, Indonesia, Vietnam, the Philippines, and India. This whole area, including India, which is far from the region, experienced tremendous rains, the heaviest ones. They said it happens once a century or even three. Above all, it mainly affected Indonesia and Malaysia and other surrounding countries, but mainly those two countries, right? What happened was tremendous, and surely more surprising images will keep coming out. Another thing about these images, well, surprising, was this one. This is from a huge fire that broke out. The size of the place is enormous. This happened in St. Petersburg. It's one of the largest markets in that region of the world. In Russia's second most important city, according to reports, explosions could also be heard inside the fire. Russian media claim that the entire market area could already be engulfed in flames, and witnesses describe hearing multiple explosions before the fire. It is not known. The cause of the fires is unknown. At least 2 people were injured. A 52-year-old woman who suffered from intoxication and a man who was injured after jumping from a second floor in that market. So, well, there are no fatalities and just these injured people, but the fire itself was very large and broke out in this region of Russia. No, well, that's how things are. Let's move on to other important topics as well. Well, there was a sighting that they say is unprecedented. A sighting of this whale, a whale called the North Atlantic right whale. And, well, these are the kinds of sightings that surprise experts and scientists for several reasons. Not only because it's in a rather unusual place for its characteristics, but also because now it's in this image, which, by the way, they've already been able to confirm. The whale would have broken every rule, in the sense that it's surprising that a North Atlantic right whale, critically endangered, was spotted in Ireland. And months later, the same one was seen in Boston in the United States, revealing a migratory pattern that had never been documented before. Experts confirmed that it's the same one. They confirmed that it's the same specimen thanks to their confirmation. With these scars they have on the top part, right? And so are they able to detect that it also has the same pattern of scars and spots? And with that, it's confirmed to be the same specimen. According to reports, there are only about 380 specimens in the world. Since so few remain, this also attracts attention. This sighting in Ireland, by the way, is the first one in 100 years. They hadn't seen this type of whale in the area. Well, obviously they were shocked. They couldn't believe it when they saw this whale. But well, it's also part of today's curiosities. By the way, in Mexico, vaping and electronic cigarettes are also completely banned, according to reports. The Chamber of Deputies of Mexico approved this reform on Tuesday. Yesterday, they did not approve the constitutional reform to fully ban vapes and electronic cigarettes in the country. And with up to 8 years in prison for selling them, for example, 324 votes in favor, 129 against. A very harsh criticism from people who vape, especially not because they said, well, that many legislators vape and now they're the same ones voting against it. And above all, what bothers people the most right now about this issue is that there will be an illegal market that obviously creates more problems. Why? Because then organized crime has yet another business, right? Another business to operate and make money from, right? So, well, this whole vaping issue, how has it generated, well, controversies? On one hand, because it does cause harm, that's more than proven, right? I mean, there are some who say it doesn't cause harm. Well, it's more than proven that it causes harm and affects the lungs tremendously, but that's another story, right? Imposing a ban always creates more problems. Whenever there's a ban, more dangerous and problematic situations arise. better information campaigns to discourage use, but let everyone make their own decision. During the legislative discussion, opposition representatives criticized the ruling party for opening the door to organized crime. In the vape and e-cigarette industry, they argue against regulating a product people already use. Is it the same or even more black market and more money for trafficking? So basically what they're warning is that there will be an illegal market. And in fact, you can be sure that the very first day the ban is in place, that illegal market will start. Well, unfortunately, that's how it is. Let's move on to other topics. Look, the government. It had been mentioned in the United States that there was even going to be a risky situation because there will be snowstorms that could reach, well, up to 100 kilometers per hour. And this is because they hadn't warned about it themselves, right? But in fact, a risky situation is already happening in the area. So please be very careful because look, these winds are already starting to happen. Let's see if we can show the image. You can see, well, it's impressive in the North Atlantic, but also on the east coast of the United States and even in the Great Lakes area, even on the northwest side. There are very strong winds in Oregon, Washington, and nearby areas. All of this is a very harsh phenomenon because the wind chill when you have a polar vortex, when you have snow, when it's very cold. Well, gusts at 100 kilometers per hour cause a lot of problems. For example, hypothermia in people or in animals. That can happen much faster with wind than without wind. So obviously this increases the risk for the population, for people who might be being exposed to the cold. The snowstorm impacts them. Be careful. With this, more than 1,900 kilometers of the United States are under wind and snow alerts from North Dakota to New York. It's about 1,900 kilometers of alerts being issued because of all these cold conditions, right? Be very attentive to this situation because the wind is already an extra risk factor. Even bigger, right? So, according to what can be seen, according to what we have been confirming during these last few hours, it's already here. The phenomenon, it's already hitting hard, and we've been checking some other reports besides the one from National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, for example, Fox Weather. What did it say about Chicago? And they say that right now they've already accumulated 38 centimeters of snow, but they're expecting fronts with gusts of up to 105 kilometers per hour. They call it the Windy City, so it's fitting. I think it's clear that Chicago is definitely the windy city with snow winds, the humidity from the huge lake, and winds reaching 105 kilometers per hour. Hey, that's quite a phenomenon. Besides temperatures and such, what's expected now is that they will continue. Among other things, blackouts are already expected. This could cause power outages, road blockages, and obviously the usual risks of accidents when this happens. The National Weather Service itself warns that this phenomenon, known as the fast frontal system, will continue and could reach some regions in the southern United States. As we can see towards Alabama, this whole area of Texas, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, the Carolinas, Arkansas. So this area could also be affected since it's part of the phenomenon's reach, right? So friends who live over there, please be careful as well. In the United States, the National Weather Service had already warned that this phenomenon, what they call a fast-moving frontal system, will continue, possibly throughout this entire weekend. Right now it's Wednesday, so there's still some time left, so start getting ready. If you have a little bit of good weather for a while, take advantage of it to go to the supermarket and get some extra supplies, right? And don't get overconfident, especially if you have no reason to go out. There are always plenty of things to do at home, right? So just take it easy. The authorities are asking for the following. What exactly are the authorities officially requesting? They advise against unnecessary travel, stay in if possible. Basically, especially because of the blizzards, that's what they're asking for the most. Patience, right? There's also the risk of black ice, right? What is this ice? Which can also be very dangerous for the roads and for this whole Great Lakes region. The active winter pattern will continue all next week, meaning this weekend and possibly into next week. There will be very cold conditions with the system that will be present. Look, at times it will move westward, yes, and at times it will even go further south. The cold phenomenon, and at times with this burst of polar cold, not just minus 20 something degrees Celsius. Fortunately, not everyone will experience that, but there are states that will have extremely cold temperatures. And you can see how the phenomenon keeps moving and moving, possibly toward the south. It's a pattern, as they say, an active one that could extend, watch out until next week. So there it is, right? It's not hitting that hard. The wind and the temperatures, even though they're cold, they're even freezing in the mountains, but not with so much wind and not so much humidity. The problem isn't major, though some regions are experiencing drizzle. If you look, let's check the satellite. The satellite from the last 5 minutes, the last 15 minutes, and you'll see. There's something. Some clouds, yes, but they're not very thick clouds. They don't carry that much water, as you can see. It can make it cloudy, sometimes partly cloudy, with a little drizzle and similar conditions, right? Towards Oaxaca, towards Guerrero, there are a few more chances of rain because there's a storm nearby. Look, there it is, only a few hundred kilometers away. That phenomenon continues with chances of causing more rain, but overall, there's not that much humidity. In contrast, it'll be sunny in the northwest. No, so it's a pleasant cold, so to speak. And at times, it can even get warm in some regions. As you can see, right? I mean, this is actually a pretty decent, pretty pleasant climate, all things considered. Likewise, for Central America and the Caribbean, this warm, mild temperature remains not very good. And, well, in any case, it doesn't cause as much trouble as what's happening over there in the United States, which is really hitting hard, right? Yes, at times there are some possible storms, but a little more toward Central America, not the Caribbean, maybe around there. There we see them, there we see them. There's Costa Rica, Panama, Nicaragua, part of southern Guatemala, and northern Honduras. There are some storms, but they're very mild, right? Now, for Brazil, for Colombia, and Venezuela to the south, there are already some slightly more intense storms if you go further south, Peru, Brazil in this central part, and the border with Bolivia, also with possible storms toward the southern area of Brazil. Also with a strong storm, by the way, that's off its coast and could also affect Uruguay a little bit, and also, well, toward the northern part, not the far north, but let's say up to Buenos Aires, Mar del Plata, all that area with chances of storms in Argentina. Well, let's move on to other matters. Let's go to the comments. We're almost there. How have you been? Thank you so much for joining us for a little while. Let's take a moment to look at other reports. We won't be talking about other topics. Thank you to everyone in the community for being here with us. Angel, how have you been? Hello, greetings to the whole community that's watching us. Angel, who else is there? Marcella, how have you been? Marcella, hello? It's called the freezing factor, says Dari. How have you been, Jose? How are you? Greetings to the north of Spain. How are things over there? All the way to Asturias. Hello, says Denny. Hello, baby. Thank you, he says. Thank God. Here in Long Island, the weather is nice, so that's good. Greetings. Let's see how it goes in the next few hours since Long Island is already on the way to New York. So you're kind of in the middle of where the bad weather is supposed to come. So let's see how it goes for you these next few days. You'll let me know. Good luck, okay? FB Cine. How have you been? Greetings here. 30? Where are you? 38 degrees. A lot of heat. Hi, Rigoberto. How have you been? Thanks for joining us. Edgar, how are you? Greetings, Jose Zarate Tocayo. How have you been? Very good here. Paying attention to the comments. Let's go to the other live. We're going to have a live in a moment. We're going to talk about several topics. That's all. First, I want to share the latest update on the 13 Atlas, and then we'll go over there because that's what I think. Well, it's a very interesting twist and more information that it shows. Well, the strange thing, the weird thing is the 13 Atlas. One says that this is surprising. We're not going there. Well, Comet 13 Atlas keeps surprising us. And before we move on to other matters, let me tell you, what is the latest update on the 13 Atlas? From the information on the data, I mean, what's happening, but also some of the reactions that scientists are having according to what is being reported, they insist. And this is from the web. Up to this moment, he has published 11 scientific articles, 11 papers published in journals and scientific sites. From whatever it may be, but also from scientific reactions. Publishing them has caused him several problems. Yes, because the more information there is, the more data confirms that these 11 anomalies cannot be explained from a natural point of view. The physicist Avi Loeb is considering that the interstellar object 13 Atlas could have a technological origin beyond a typical classification of a comet or an asteroid. The controversy arises because there are some anomalies that can only be explained by technology, rather than by assuming it's something artificial. But the problem he's facing is that they don't even allow him to mention it as a hypothesis in those scientific articles. And this is where what he calls the systematic bias of science comes in. That's what he calls it. At least this time, despite the lack of definitive evidence. So a hypothesis is being presented. Because even though there isn't definitive evidence, and even Loeb himself acknowledges that yes, he says so, you have to come up with hypotheses. You have to, having information should at least allow you to have open hypotheses about whatever the truth may be. The problem is that they're not being allowed, he says. The issue isn't just how we classify a comet, but how science itself operates. Is that understood? Why look for strange or unusual particles? Or these, let's say, anomalous ones? Why would a scientist look for them? If they already know it's present, they'll say, you can't discuss it because it doesn't exist, right? Hey, but I discovered this. Yes, but if it never existed, then it doesn't exist, right? So the scientist seeking new discoveries ends up in the same place, right? Well, I'm a scientist here to make discoveries, but I'm not allowed to discuss them. That's the main issue, right? There are several things I want to talk to you about the latest anomalies, the new images, because what I'm telling you, someone who saw the first Atlas videos might think, well, it's the same. Well, in a way, it's the same in the sense that they're the same anomalies. The thing here, the huge difference between what we talked about 2 months ago and now, the big difference is that now they have more evidence to prove that these anomalies are there. What was expected at this point was that these anomalies would no longer be anomalies because they would be able to prove that they were something else. And you know what? Look, this isn't an anomaly because we've already seen this, and this. Here, it's explained perfectly. Okay, excellent. We've already explained it. Okay, cross it out. This anomaly is no longer here. Another one. No, we've already explained this, and this. Okay, perfect. No problem. We already know how, but the problem is that some time has passed and there's more information now, and we've run out of images. We have to change this camera again. Let's see if Street is watching us. The test, the trial by fire, is Street watching us or not? I'm not talking to him since he's not watching, so we have no camera or access. The thing is that this anomaly appears in the new high-resolution images from the Hubble Space Telescope captured on November 30th. As of yesterday, December 9th, it confirms the surprising and puzzling characteristics of the object. 3 and back first, the anti-tail. Ah, look, if he sees me, if he sees us, he's here already. Say hello to the community. No, man, they can't see you. Put your hand there so they know you exist, that you're real. There it is. Look, that's the hand of... He's good. Continuing with the matter, it's confirmed that, well, what was seen on November 30 and what is seen on December 9 is simply baffling. What is it that you see? What is it that you keep seeing right now that shouldn't be happening? First, there's an anti-tail that always points toward the sun, regardless of the comet's movement. You might wonder, how is that possible? I mean, you say, okay, it just so happened that the jet is pointing at the sun. Perfect. It just so happened that it's pointing at the sun, I think. In fact, National Aeronautics and Space Administration itself says that it's already happened, that there are tails pointing at the sun. Okay, what hasn't happened is that the tail keeps pointing at the sun as it moves forward. This is the sun, right? And it keeps moving forward and moving forward and moving forward and moving forward and moving forward, and it keeps pointing at the sun. And you say this really doesn't make any sense. I mean, it would be absurd to think that by nature the comet would, point at the sun. No, that's not possible. You can't do that. At least there's no possible explanation. In that sense, it defies what they call the dynamics of comets, where the solar wind, to begin with, pushes the dust backward. I mean, the jet emission, which, by the way, is a very precise jet right in the middle of the nucleus, well, this is contradicting the solar wind. Basically, the orientation of this structure also reversed after the perihelion. This perihelion, so this structure that reverses rules out optical effects. Because many days have passed, because it has already been seen by many observatories, and not anymore, because at first they still said, well, there surely will be. It's like saying it's an optical illusion. It's too far to see clearly, so it doesn't make sense. But when there are many observatories from different angles, not just those on Earth, but also the ones, look, out there in space, the UIS heading toward Jupiter, no, that's a different one. All the probes from various angles show the same thing. The orientation of this structure was reversed after perihelion, ruling out optical perspective effects and showing, well, that there's something very interesting here. And what it says is December 19th. We'll have more information to detect, like the energy jets, the nucleus, everything we've been talking about, how the anti-tail is going and so on. Right? What he's asking is that people stop saying his hypotheses don't make sense and that they should be completely dismissed. No, because they are hypotheses, not even theories yet. Yes, or just that. It's like, what could it be that has these characteristics? The nickel issue is a separate topic that really stands out, right? He says, a particle physicist looks for a new particle, but he says that when you find it, usually people say, oh, well, he already found a new particle, he already found that. But here he even says it's perfectly valid for people to question you, okay? Question it, right, with data, right? Hey, look, I think this data is like this, or it's been analyzed incorrectly because of this, but that's perfectly fine, he says. But the thing is that there's an active search for scientific groups in different places to discredit Loeb. I mean, literally, they go to the media, they go out and speak badly about him. No, to give new data and provide verifiable information that he's wrong, which would be valid, right? Hey, you know what, Loeb, look, I have it here. No, they don't openly criticize him or say he's wrong, but what evidence do you have that proves otherwise? I mean, he's just wrong, isn't he? And that's it. So, yeah, he's kind of upset. I don't see him upset in that sense, but, well, it's just part of being ahead in that sense. But anyway, right? Let's go quickly. Just say hi here to the community. Cheers, he says. The master says that on the 19th we might have a new Christmas gift. Hopefully, yes, right? I think there are interesting things coming between now and the 19th, maybe even before. Jack, greetings Draper Beatrice, how are you? Beatrice Alvarez, very good. Mario Santaya, how's it going? Hello to Madrid, Spain, Deborah, how are you? Greetings to Florida. Well, we'll see you in a little while. We'll be right back. Let's move on to other topics and we'll be back in a few minutes. Here, do it on pay-per-view.
Thank you for watching the Pepe News Live, where the events of planet Earth and the secrets of outer space are analyzed like nowhere else. Thank you for subscribing.